All right, hello, folks. So welcome to another episode of the Rich Life Podcast, Wealth, Health, and Happiness. I'm your host, Po Wu. Today, my co-host Lane is away, but we've got an incredible guest lined up for you. So joining us from California is Shariann Tom. She is the CEO and co-founder of the Cancer Journey Institute. Shariann is a certified professional coactive coach, a master cancer journey coach, and also a professional certified coach. Shariann's story is really remarkable. Since she was 38, she's battled and survived 4 bouts of Hodgkin's lymphoma and 1 gastrointestinal stromal tumor. These experiences led her to discover the transformative power of coaching during a cancer journey, which inspired her to create a movement dedicated to supporting cancer patients, caregivers, and survivors. With nearly 25 years of coaching and coach training experience, plus over 16 years in business management, sales, and marketing, Shariann brings a unique blend of empathy and expertise to her work. She's also the co-author of The Call to Cancer, A Loving Pathway to Wholeness, Healing, and Transformation, and she's been featured in the Wall Street Journal and on KGO News. She also frequently speaks at cancer support centers and health conferences across the country. Today, Shariann will share her thoughts on the deep connection between health and wealth and how facing cancer can lead to profound personal growth and discovery. Shariann, welcome to the show. We're so honored to have you with us today.
I am delighted to be here today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Shariann, can you start by just sharing your personal journey with cancer and how it led you to discover the transformative power of coaching, how you got into it all?
I really started as a corporate drone. I am going to use that word because now I can look back at it with fondness, but also I'm so glad that part of my life is over. So I was in corporate and I always had this phrase in my head because it wasn't completely fulfilling. And that was, this is just a stop along the way. This is
Mm,
just a stop along the way. But I didn't really know where the end result was.
yeah.
So I just kept showing up and doing my job and was pretty successful at it until I realized that my hair was falling out. And that alerted me, but it
Mm,
also alerted my manager. And she said, I think you're really stressed out. And I'm like, am I don't know. I always thought that if I took on more stress, I could handle more stress. Not a belief I hold anymore. So tried to do some stress management. And then soon after, I noticed a lump in my neck and it's not a typical scenario, but it's very familiar in the cancer world where we notice that something's not right and we go get it checked. And then we get it really checked and we get that very unhappy diagnosis of you have cancer. And that changed my life completely. And even though I knew that work was just a stop along the way, I still knew that, okay, I'm going to go back there. And I was on my treatment journey. And then I realized, what? There's this thing that keeps popping up, that keeps showing up as an advertisement. And it was
mm,
about life coaching. And I'm like, what's that?
mm,
And so during my treatment journey, I had a lot of empty time to think and ponder. And so I decided I was going to check this life coaching thing out. I had to sign up for a 3-hour class. I thought I would be okay when it showed up, when it was time to go to class. It was the day of the class. And I sat there and went, I don't feel like going to that, but I paid for it. So that's always a really good
mm,
impetus to get
yeah.
people to show up. So I made a deal with myself and said, I'll just go to 2 hours instead of the 3 hours. So I showed up late and I walked in and I was engaged. I like what they were saying. And then I started getting involved and doing some of the exercises that they were doing. And then I realized that I was having fun. Like I actually was enjoying what I was
Yeah.
doing so much that when I left that workshop, I realized that I had more energy then, still going through chemotherapy, than I did when I was in my corporate job. And I thought, okay, there's something here I need to pay attention to. And that started the whole pathway into getting formally trained and then certified. And then cancer kept showing up.
That's a remarkable journey, but it sounds like what you're saying is that you actually discovered you felt in some ways more alive being in that coaching training course than all those years that, in your words, being a drone in corporate. Yeah.
Yeah. It felt like that was zapping my life. I've heard people say corporate can cause micro tears in your
Mhm.
soul. I can relate to that now. Back then it was like, no, I'm getting this great paycheck.
Yeah.
I'm doing great. I'm getting all these accolades, but it wasn't fulfilling. And coaching did.
Yeah.
fulfill a hole that was needed.
Yeah, I think this will resonate with a lot of our listeners who, a lot of them are what we would call like high achievers. A lot of them are busy professionals. I mean, we have a lot of like high earners or like first generation wealth, very dedicated, very hardworking in trying to build up the financial foundation to provide for their families. But I know that a lot of our listeners, they could probably resonate with the part where you said it was just it's like a grind, right? You're just slaving away, doing the same thing. And if they had to be honest, they're not terribly passionate about their jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That takes a lot of honesty because if I'm really honest, I was at the pinnacle of my career. I had the
Hmm.
golden handcuffs. I
Hmm.
had brought in the largest account for the corporation I was working for, which was a top five Fortune 500 company. And there was no reason for me to leave, but it didn't fulfill that need that was inside of me for
Yeah.
more, to do more, to contribute more.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can make a lot of money, but is that enough? And
Yeah.
I wouldn't have left if cancer didn't show up in my life.
Yeah, and I love that term that you said before, golden handcuffs. Right? I think there's a lot of folks out there who, if they had to be honest, like that's sort of what's keeping them at their jobs, and especially if your benefits are also tied to your
Hmm.
employment and you have so much riding on it, but the job provides this important sense of security and stability. So it makes it that much more difficult to take a risk. Do you go for something that might truly make you happy, or do you settle for staying satiated, right?
And that word wealth is
Mm.
so large because it's not just financial wealth, although I certainly attribute it to that. But now I see a much larger definition of wealth where it is my health. It is my livelihood. It is the lifestyle that I choose rather than that I fall into. It's that whole thing
Yeah.
encompassed together. It's the wealth of quality of life.
Yeah.
So when you asked me to be on this podcast, I thought I would love to because there is such a close connection between health and wealth. Because the truth is, if you don't have your health, it really doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank.
Yeah, absolutely. I cannot agree more with that. For our listeners, for someone who hasn't experienced cancer yet or like a major health scare, who might find it hard to relate because they haven't gone through that experience yet, what are some key insights or advice that you would give them, right? That, for example, picture someone like yourself some years ago sitting in corporate, it's not giving them great joy, but it's bringing home the paycheck. What advice would you have for them?
Oh, okay. From the other side, look at
Yeah.
that. My kids were little,
Mm.
so it wasn't hard to have that impetus of the cancer. But if the cancer wasn't there, I think I would have, if I slowed down enough to notice, hey, my hair's falling out. What's that
Mm.
about? And just noticing the stress levels. But I think that they're so quiet. It starts off quietly. It might be a heart palpitation. It might be elevated blood pressure, upset stomach, just noticing how you're dealing with life. I think that because there's always little
Yeah.
signs that you're pushing it. And I think inside we all know when we're pushing it, but we're just not aware. So that slowing down is a big one for me. We have something called the pause concept in our
Yeah.
coaching, and we really love our clients enough that we slow them down and we have them actually pause,
Mhm.
notice,
Yeah.
like what's going on in this moment. So present moment is super important because we only have power in the present moment.
Mm.
I know as people on the move and doers and shakers and movers, we're always looking at the
Yes.
future. So it's okay. So that is important, but I also need to savor this moment. So if I'm looking at how do I have it all, right? Because
Mhm.
that's what we all want. How do I have it all? It's not putting so much attention on for future and just the financial wealth, though that's important. And we can come
Yeah.
back and talk about that. Am I happy? Here's one that people start looking at me sideways going, did you have fun? Did you play? And they're like, what are you talking about? I'm a business person. But if life is not fun and there's some play in it, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
So that's the first part. Is what brings you joy every day? And I know that seems like a really big ask. You
Mm.
mean I have to have fun every day? But then if you have children and you look at them and you hear them giggle or you hear them laugh, it's, oh my goodness, can I do that every day?
Yes.
That's the first place that I would start. And then it's lifestyle do I really want to have? And really asking yourselves from it, those are the important and they're also existential questions. Oh, what am I working so hard for? I couldn't stop the train for
Mhm.
myself, so something else had to stop me. But I think that we all have the power to go. Let's take the pause. Let's just see how what around me and what's going on. And
Yeah.
am I happy? Does that help?
I think that's a great answer, and I think that resonates with a lot of like very driven individuals, right? Who their mindset is often geared towards, which is a good thing, but so often we're focused on getting to the proverbial peak of the mountain that you don't stop to take stock of where you are and to look around you. When oftentimes the view on the way up can actually be even more beautiful than the view from the top, right?
Said.
But, yeah, I like also what you said about just stopping to pause and to pay attention to the little signs in your body. I love that too because I can relate to that from personal experience, right? When I left my first attending job, took time off and actually started to pay attention to my own health. And it's those little signs that you talked about right before it becomes like full-blown, easily diagnosable disease, right? And I noticed in myself my blood pressure is a little elevated. Why is it elevated? I'm still like a relatively young guy. Why am I getting so fatigued so often? Why am I getting these rashes when I'm stressed? It is just like these little signs that your body will oftentimes give you as a cry for help. But it
Mhm.
takes one being able to just stop and pause and pay attention to your body, to those signs. Yeah. So I think a great answer, right? Just to stop along the way, to reflect and also ask some of those tough questions. Like, what really makes me happy? Yeah.
When you're moving so fast, it's hard to answer because I'll get to that another day. When I ask people, what do you want out of life? What's your vision for the future? What are your goals? And I work with cancer individuals. So if they're like, goals, what are you talking about? I just want to get through this
Mhm.
thing that I'm going through right now. And I'm like, no, if you don't know where you're going, that Alice in Wonderland quote,
Mhm.
right? If you don't know where you're going, then any path is fine and any destination is fine too.
So can you explain like tell our audience a little bit more about like the cancer journey coaching and then how this helps individuals and your clients like reassess their life and other goals?
Okay. So, what I wanted the most when I was first diagnosed, and I asked my
Mhm.
oncologist, I said, okay, can you tell me what I'm going to go through? And he said, yes, if you choose this treatment, it's going to be this and this. If you choose the other treatment, it's going to be that. And I said, no, not what I'm going to experience when I'm going through the physical of the treatment. What I really want to know is what am I going to go through as a person? What are the ups and downs? What are the challenges? What am I going to feel? What am I good a question? I just wanted to know the whole thing. And they said, I don't understand. Shariann, I don't know. I can tell you about the treatment. And that just didn't resonate with me enough because I wanted to know the whole thing. So what I did is created the cancer journey rope. And that is something that gives our client an opportunity to really know where they are and what they're going to experience. And it's broken down to phases and stages that are very predictable. In my last cancer, I'm like, I know this. I'm going to try to jump the pit because that's the part that nobody ever wants to go
Mm.
through. And I said, I know what I need to do. So I'm going to try to do it. Think of how I'm going to get out beforehand. It didn't work that way.
Mhm.
It's just like life doesn't work that way when you try to think, I'm going to do this and we're going to go there and this is how it's going to be. It doesn't oblige.
Mm.
It doesn't follow my plan.
Yeah.
So you can't jump any of the stages. And we walked hand in hand with our clients through it from a mental, emotional, and a spiritual standpoint, meaning mental, the mindset, the stories that you make up, the way you talk to yourself, the emotions, being with the emotions and really listening to them as messengers and allowing them to show up and be instead of pushing them down in a way. And then spiritually, some people have a stronger connection with spirit. Some disconnect their connection with spirit, but really I'm looking at their inner spirit,
Mhm.
that inner flame that keep their aliveness. And so we're trying to shore them up and make them, I'm going to use the word, wealthy in that area so that they are going powerfully through their cancer journey, making decisions that feel right for them, choosing the pathway that feels right for them, and looking beyond in the future, not at someday when treatment's over, but where do I really want to be? And
Mm.
that's why the pause is so important because it's a changing process. We're changing along the cancer journey. So we're watching ourselves with awareness and consciousness of, oh, I don't like drama anymore. I'm going to give that up.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to stop. You've probably heard this a lot. Stop and smell the roses because this moment is so precious. I don't have to keep looking so far ahead.
Mm.
They get to process the whole journey while they're going through it instead of waiting till they're at the end and they go, what was that about? And trying to make sense of it. We're
Yeah.
doing it all along the way.
Yeah, I like that. So it's just a very holistic and integrative mindset and
Yes.
approach. Yeah. Now, I know you're also a real estate investor. I've had this background in corporate. So I'm interested to hear more about this interplay between health and wealth. It's how do you see these two aspects influencing each other, especially in the context of a serious illness like cancer or any other health challenge?
So we have a matrix that
Hmm.
talks about our lives,
Mm.
and we have our clients look at all of these different areas. And we're so focused when we're on a cancer journey on the health that we kind of discount everything else.
Mm.
And surprisingly, they're all interconnected.
Yeah.
But one of the areas is money. We live in a world that deals with
Yeah.
money. And so trying to have a foundation that is something that you can stand on. And for me, I didn't work while I was going through cancer treatment. So it was this constant, I'm working, I'm not working, I'm working, I'm not working. So there was no predictability around money. Thank goodness I have a very loving husband who
Yeah.
stayed employed through all of that. What we found was investing in real estate. Oprah once said, they're not making more land. And I thought, then I think we need to get ours.
Mm.
That the real estate to me truly was a reflection of a foundation that my family feeling safe. And even though like the stock market or real estate goes up and down, but it really felt like real estate was solid. And so I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be able to invest. And I enjoy doing that because we have income property, which allows me this generosity rented out to someone who needs a place to live
Yeah.
and not gouge them to create this nice place where they can live. So I feel like in a way I'm giving back. I'm not giving them free rent,
Yeah.
but there is this exchange that's fair. And I'm always on the lookout
Yeah.
for something that allows me to contribute while also continuing to build my foundation so I feel secure.
Like a fair energy exchange. And also that's what makes it sustainable, right?
Uh-huh.
I think a lot of our listeners, they also happen to be investors, especially in the real estate space. I know a lot of folks in our community, they're thinking about being that provider role for their immediate family, but also in terms of the future generations. A lot of our listeners, they care about leaving a legacy, not just for their kids, but hopefully beyond that. So how does, in working with your clients, when you're melding like the realms of health and wealth, do you come across this? Do you see folks start to ask questions like, how can I make the most impact in terms of leaving a legacy, especially if my future is uncertain, right? With this cancer diagnosis.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is definitely a big topic. I even had somebody say to me, this money stuff is
Yeah.
as devastating as a diagnosis, a cancer diagnosis for
Mm.
them. And so it was like, I love that you used the word legacy. How do I leave something so not that only that I was secure, but that my kids are taken care of or my generation? And I am, again, so grateful that we did invest in real estate early on that I always thought it was going to be the college fund. And
Mm.
it just happened that when my kids were going to college, that's when the stock market tanked. And I was like, oh my goodness, how are we going to get them in through school? And luckily, we were able to do it, scholarships and just getting by. It came back. And not just, I did almost got some bad advice, which was, oh, you should just liquidate. Just go ahead and sell it. It's underwater. Just let it go. And I thought, it's underwater. What have I got to lose? I think I'm just going to hold on to this. And I'm so glad that I did because now that it's come back more than it was before, I do feel like there is a foundation for my kids
Yeah.
to have a home of their own and that they can pass on. 'Cause real estate in the Bay Area is very expensive. So I'm extra excited that I got in earlier,
Yeah.
but I would still buy today if I found the right place and could afford it.
Oh, I love it. So sounds like you would recommend getting in early if you can, right? Before things are a little too late.
And I would
Yeah.
do it before buying that fancy car or all those other things that we crave just for our own pleasure. The foundation of that home or property just feels, I just say it and I could feel the security here in my
Mm,
belly.
yeah. And that must give, for folks who have thought like a step or two ahead, that must give some comfort if they've already taken the steps to set up a legacy, because none of us know when our time on earth is up. But I imagine that in your clients who have taken the steps to think proactively, that must offer some amount of comfort that they took the steps that they did when they did.
And just having experienced myself, I don't normally give advice, but if someone were to ask, how did I do it? I'm happy to talk about real estate.
Yeah.
I believe in it so much that they have real estate groups and
Hmm.
clubs. If you can't afford something all by yourself, being with a group that's investing together
Yes.
can make sense. You guys know you're the
Yeah.
experts at that. But I like doing things in a group. So that
Yeah.
works for me.
Yeah. And you also get that sense of community, right? And you get to learn from one another. Yeah.
Absolutely. And for the cancer individual, we tend to be so alone and isolated as we're going on our cancer journey that opportunities like this that provide multiple benefits, like
Mm,
not only are you investing your money, but hey, I'm learning and I'm also in community of
mm.
like-minded people. So that just makes the whole quality of life more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know for myself and for a lot of those in our community, as the years and the months go by, we know more and more people who we learn actually have come down with a recent cancer diagnosis, or we learn about people that have actually succumbed to cancer,
Mhm.
unfortunately. My first question relating to this is, if one of our listeners unfortunately runs into a cancer diagnosis, what would you recommend that they do? Because it can be quite tough not knowing how to process and also not knowing, who do I tell? Do I reach out for help? It's almost like panic.
So
Yeah.
it's so much of a mental game. Who do I tell? How do I tell them? Oh my God, I feel like I'm going to die because that's that connection, right?
Yeah.
Cancer and
Yeah.
death. Even though we've come so far, it's still that immediate mindset. I highly recommend getting a coach. Of course, I'm going to say
Yeah.
this, Poe, but because our coaches are specifically
Mm,
called cancer journey coaches, because we're talking about the journey of it, not just what you do. It's the whole journey and even how do I reenter into life, provided that all goes well. That is equally as hard as getting a diagnosis. That's a surprise to most people.
mm,
It's just your life, you've changed and now you're re-entering life. And everybody is either gone on or they're the same, and you're just like, I don't know where I fit in. What I would say is hire a coach because this becomes the safe place. I know people have friends and they have family. I did too, but I needed somebody who was neutral,
mm,
who I didn't feel like I needed to take care of because the cancer patient does feel like, okay, I can only say so much to my mom and dad. And I don't know how much I can say to my kids. We're trying to
mm.
just go through this as elegantly as we can. So having a neutral party to talk to who has experience. Our coaches are either cancer survivors or cancer caregivers. So they've had an
Yeah.
experience, but they've also had a year of training to learn skills and tools to deal with all the nuances, especially
Mm.
the mental, the emotional, and then the aliveness factors, just so that you have this special place to go to that's unburdened by you and you don't burden anybody else. If here's a trained professional who is all about you, but for this particular journey of
Yeah.
your life.
I love that. I'm a little biased too, so I believe in the power and the importance of coaches, right? Especially if we're faced with an uncertain domain, and that not wanting to be a burden on friends and family. I can see how much conflict that could cause somebody, right? Yeah. Do you have any advice for those who, let's say, whose friend or family member has come down with a cancer diagnosis, right? Because oftentimes folks also might not know, how much support should I give? I don't want to be awkward. I don't want to be intrusive, but I want to be there for them. But what advice would you give folks who are like either on the friend or family or caretaker side?
It's a tenuous place, right?
Yeah.
Because we're walking on eggshells. I get that. I actually think that the caregiver's role is very tough, especially when they're an active caregiver. But even if they're not an active caregiver. I want to make it go away, but I don't have the
Yeah.
power to do that. So what can I do that will really help? First off is treat the patient like you normally do. I know it's automatic reflex to be sympathetic, but having that feeling that somebody feels like we're less than or that we're broken, like we're a scared puppy,
Mhm.
it doesn't help. I need somebody to just treat me like they have always. Hey, Shariann, let's go do your laundry. What I wanted was people to talk to, tell me what's going on with the world, with your world, and keeping me a part of that because I'm so separate, right? I'm home, I'm recovering. I can't be involved with the world. So bring the world to me.
Yeah.
And there are little things like washing my clothes, folding my clothes, washing the dishes, those little things that, hey, if I could sit on a chair and you're doing it for me and we're connecting, oh my goodness. I love the connection and you're helping me. And I don't feel so, oh, I've got to do the dishes kind of thing. If your patient were to talk about death and dying, I know this is really a touchy
Mhm.
subject, but it's there in our minds. I promise you, we have thought about it. We're afraid of it. We're afraid to talk about it, but we want to because it's part of the process. Please let them. And don't be like, oh, just be positive because that doesn't help us at all. It's, so what do you think? And let them just expand. They'll find their way out. And if they start crying, let them cry. Crying actually has the tears that we need in that moment to, whether it's endorphins that soothe.
Mhm.
So when we try to stifle the cry, because we don't want other people to feel uncomfortable, we're actually hurting ourselves.
Yeah.
Breathe. Let us cry. Let us scream. Let us be angry. Just like what at any normal time of our life, we're just dealing with something that we didn't ask for. And we want it to go away as much as everybody else. But come with me. Take me to the doctor. Sit with me. It's that what I found is everyone wanted to give me space to rest.
Mm.
And so they disappeared. And
Mm.
I would be sitting there with my HD TV alone in the dark, and everybody left because they didn't want to bother me. And I felt so alone.
Yeah. That's powerful advice. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I think as we wrap up, any final thoughts for, let's say, type A individuals, high achievers who might want to learn how to like redefine their success in a way that includes like, personal fulfillment and well-being rather than just simply career or financial accomplishments?
First thing that popped into my head is you can have it all, just not all at the same time.
Mm.
And so in the 16 hours or the 16 hours that we have, we can have this wonderful, harmonious life that has a little bit of it all. And trust me, I could have easily have been a workaholic and stayed there. And somehow my body was wise enough to say, nope, this is not working.
Yeah.
And I'm so much happier. Life is good. Life is really good now here on the other side. Do the pod. It's worth it.
Yeah. But I mean it's also a really powerful testament to you. I mean, it looks like you were able to turn some like what a lot of people would consider a traumatic experience and you use that as a transformative experience to be actually become more alive, right? To experience life even more fully than had you not come across these unfortunate circumstances.
I do want to say that it took a lot of courage and bravery
Mm.
to stop working because we were a
Mm.
two income house.
Mm.
And I have to say it was hard for a while.
Yeah.
You find your way and things show up. We're doing fine.
Yeah. It sounds like it takes courage to step back from the things that aren't fully working for you to reprioritize the things in the way that they ought to be. Yeah. How can folks get in touch with you? And where can they find out more about your organization and the work that you do?
Thank you for asking. You can find us at thecancerjourney.com on the internet. Everything that I've spoken about is there. And we also have a free gift for anyone who visits our website. It is a guided meditation, also known as guided visualization, that is specifically for cancer individuals. If you know somebody who's going through it, it's something that I would highly you recommend to your person because this meditation takes them somewhere that they would not have done on their own and truly supports them. Even for people who are done with their cancer, because we always are afraid of its recurrent. That's just the truth. This meditation will help with that area too. So thecancerjourney.com and come and get your free gift.
All right. Thank you so much. So Shariann Tom, it was a real pleasure talking to you. I feel like we could talk for hours, but thank you so much for your time and for your insights and your very practical words of wisdom and advice for our listeners.
Thanks so much, Poe. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you.